As I mentioned, we were talking about funding organizations and funding representatives, and we're going to stay with this concept of funding, but switching it to a little bit of a different topic here. The Trump administration is unfreezing nearly $6 billion in federal education funding after a month-long freeze left states and schools in limbo just before the new school year. Funds for vital programs, including English language learning, teacher development, and adult education, will start releasing after July 28th. States are reminded they must follow all federal laws, OMB regulations, and executive orders in using these funds. Education Secretary Linda McMahon says the full amount could be distributed by year's end, but many districts warn they need support sooner with classes starting in days. The release follows intense bipartisan and legal pressure in the response to the freeze, which had threatened teacher jobs and student programs nationwide. Now, Nola, when I saw this story, it really made me, it's sad, but it made me say, this is what we try to tell you. You know, here we always talk about hashtag we try to tell you, because everything that these teachers, these families, these educators are asking for, this is what they would call woke. Right? And we need after school programs. Oh, we need help for our kids who need occupational therapy in our school. We need the funding for this. When we would talk about these things, they would call it woke, but now it seems that they're kind of messing around and finding out themselves. How do you see it?
How do I see it? It's very simple. I think the tactic worked. You scare people, you take resources away from them, and you give them demands, and then they meet them. It's pretty simple. I mean, you discipline children, you discipline animals by taking food away from them, and then you reward them by giving them food. And so the way that this administration is operating domestically and globally is to beat people with a stick into compliance. And sadly, it's working. And so the hoops that people are going to have to jump through to get this money freed, that's also going to include the erasure of Black history. I'm pretty sure the erasure of Native American histories and histories that do not align with the narrative of, Puritanism and, the whole kind of mythological stories that are told in this country about white Americans when they came here. So that is how I see it. I'm happy that children will get resources, but this administration is getting what they want, which is compliance and capitulation, and you have to jump through all the hoops. And we are low-hanging fruit. So that means Black history is no more.
Wow. Reese, how do you see this? Because some people say this is part of an awakening of people in red states. They're starting to realize that the Trump policies that they thought were only going to affect people in Black and brown communities are actually affecting them. And now they're going to be speaking up and demanding more. Some people are saying that this is something that they're doing, just to distract from the Epstein files. They're saying we're going to release this stuff right now. Do you see something happening within these rural areas, within these red states, where people are actually starting to get caught or get aware of Trump was selling a bag of goods to them? Or are they really just more focused on what they need in their space in that moment and the rest of the country be damned?
The latter. I mean, of course, all this stuff was going to hit them. That's what Project 2025 was about from the jump. It was not about being solely focused on being disruptive and harming people of color. It was about deconstructing this entire state. It was about a country. It was about reorganizing the social structure of this country. And whiteness can only protect you so much if you're poor. And so, they're starting to realize that these policies are harmful across many sectors. When you're talking about farmers, when you're talking about, people who have small businesses that are being hurt by tariffs, when you're talking about people who their diabetes medication going back up and all kinds of things. But is that going to give them a come to Jesus moment? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not when it comes to MAGA. But with that said, not everybody is MAGA. And so there are plenty of people in red states. I brought this up with the representatives earlier that don't vote. I mean, red states have some of the lowest voter turnout. And in many of these states, for instance, states that have high Black populations, their voter turnout activating that capacity can make the difference. That can mean the difference between having 2 Republican senators and having 2 Democratic senators, between having a Republican governor and having a Democratic governor. And so, to the extent that people start to realize that that this is going to hurt them and they sat out, maybe they'll get in. But part of what Republicans understand is that the more that the government doesn't work for people, the more it reinforces the notion of those who are disaffected and disillusioned that government doesn't work. That was their default position going into the administration, and that's going to continue to be their solution. So unfortunately, it is hard to convince those people that what they always thought government wasn't working can be fixed by putting Democrats in office, but God damn it, we got to try.
No doubt, no doubt. So Greg, is this going to be another thing of Trump policy whack-a-mole? Because we see this situation with the Department of Education, and they're saying, okay, now we're going to give you your funding back. But I'm also thinking about situations that we've covered here with the EPA and environmental issues that are going on. I'm thinking about other places where, cancer research and funding is being destroyed for other types of diseases and the like. I'm thinking about what RFK Jr. is doing as it relates to vaccines. Are they going to wait for people to fight and protest for each of those things and then say, oh, we'll give this funding back. Oh, we'll give you this little handout right here. Is that their game plan?
I think you're echoing Omakongo what Nola said. In the Petri dish, the nut case collection that is now running the federal government, the Petri dish of white nationalists and kooks, and RFK is right at home because they get to exercise all of their fantasies at this point. And to extend Reese to just to big up Reese for you saying this. This is Project 2025. This is the nasty little piece of work called Russell Vogt. Russell Vogt is a religious extremist, like many of the other ones, Kevin Roberts and others. But it's important to understand let me just sort it out. You got a shakedown artist in terms of Donald Trump, who certainly is trying to continue to change the subject from his deep relationship with his friend Jeffrey Epstein and their friend, who they've now moved Maxwell to the prison and probably trading right now favors, trying to figure out what they're going to do with her. So there's that. But he understands that whether it be these fake tariffs with people all over the world that aren't really ever going to be enacted, whether it be trying to bludgeon places like Columbia and Harvard over the head. And if anybody thinks you're at a school that has escaped this, you're on the list. We're all on the list. This is Donald Trump with his typical shakedown work. Then you've got the religious extremists and nationalists. We'll set aside the nutcases in terms like RFK. But Russell Vogt is planning all of this. Vogt's idea is that the president is a king. And that if you're going to stop this, you're going to have to fight them in court. And even if you fight them in court, as you saw with another nasty piece of work, Emile Beauvais, they will just ignore you. They are going to try to run roughshod over any notion of the rule of law. And as you said brilliantly, brother, this isn't about laws, it's about norms. But of course, the way that norms express themselves in a civil society is through laws. And once you've torn up the rule of law, you don't get it back. Vogt is now moving and understand, the hatred toward migrant education, which was $375 million of this funding, the hatred toward English language learning, which is $800 million of that funding, academic enrichment for those who aren't their children, $1.3 billion, and professional development staff and teachers. And they have contempt for teachers because teachers engage in, what's that word? Oh, yeah, learning. They're against learning. So that's $2.2 billion. But Russell Vogt, this little nasty piece of work, is now obsessed with this concept of rescission. So what he's doing is preparing these raft of bills to come through the federal legislature to claw back money that Congress has already appropriated. That's his next move. And you're absolutely right. NIH, for example, he was asked about the National Institutes of Health late last month, and he said they've wasted money. What about cancer research? Well, I'm not worried about that. He also is saying that, there should be less bipartisanship in United States Congress. Not that there's a whole lot. But then you have the mute Dakotan, who is the majority leader, John Thune, who is sitting up there trying to keep his stiff upper lip as he suborns all of this foolishness. But he's got a problem because there's a government shutdown looming in October if he doesn't get these appropriations bills passed, and he needs 60 votes to do it. Well, they want to to get past that. They want to lower that threshold. But in Russell Vought's case, what he's saying is this concept of the imperial presidency, this strengthened executive. The president as a king can look at what Congress appropriated and said, I don't agree, and I think you're wasting money, and I think that I can shrink that number, and you just need to see me in court. All of this, in other words, it's not about education. It's not about NIH. It's not about health. It's not about Health and Human Services or HUD. This is about the concept that the president is a king, can do whatever the hell he wants. And Russell Vogt is going to test that until the wheels come off, because this nasty little piece of work, a religious extremist, has a nasty little vision of a nasty little country in his mind, and he's going to ride it until the wheels fall off or until we stop him, whichever one comes first.
It's so powerful that in several of these answers, the idea of Project 2025 was evoked because one source is reporting that 46% of Project 2025 has already been implemented. And we're not even a year into this presidency yet. So as y'all are saying, if we don't wake up now, before we know it, it's going to be too late.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.